When we use the word theory in connection with literature, it becomes literary theory. The word theory here holds no other meaning than that of our day-to-day life. A quick search on Google provides us with three meanings, the very first of which is of our interest in the context of literature, which is a supposition or a system of ideas intended to explain something, especially one based on general principles independent of the thing to be explained. The idea in our context is of feminism, Marxism, deconstruction, structuralism, and many others from the wider sphere of humanities, and something in our context is literature. Now, let us go into the depth of the word theory in an attempt of finding out its origin and its development in the current context, for which we have to first look at the Greek word theia, meaning sight. From theia formed theoros, meaning spectator, from which formed theoria, meaning contemplation, spectacle, and the same word found its way in a late Latin with the same meaning, from which formed the English word theory. In the 9th volume of the New English Dictionary on Historical Principles, published between the year 1884 and 1928, 7 meanings of the word theory are given, third of which says that the theory is a conception or mental scheme of something to be done, which is to say, planning a system that explains practice. Literary theory helps us in approaching and appreciating literature. And though it seems a rather recent phenomenon, it is at least 2.5 millennium old in India as well as in the West. In India, we can trace literary theory in Natyasashtra of Bharatmuni, in which he proposes Ras theory. Ras means sentiments, explaining which he gives an example of taste. Just like the combination of vegetables, spices and other ingredients produces a taste that satisfies the gourmet, a drama or the poetry written with the elegant language, sprinkled with rhetorical devices and seasoned with condiments of words and gestures produces a taste that satisfies the mind of the cultured audience, that takes them to another realm and ultimately helps in liberating the soul from karma. But to attain this purpose, the playwright must know the bhav of all the characters, which is to say, the inner state of all the characters. The date of Natyashastra's composition is rather difficult to find, but most scholars agree that Natyashastra is composed between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years later the Common Era. Coming to the 9th century, Anandvardhan is another great literary scholar who gave the theory of dhvani, meaning sound, which is based on Sanskrit grammatical concept of sphot, given by Bhartrihari, which may have influenced Ferdinand de Saussure's theory. Explaining dhvani theory, Mukund Madhav Sharma in his book The Dhvani Theory in Sanskrit Poetics says, the grammarians do not recognize any suggestive function of the expressive words, but they hold that the syllables that we hear suggest an eternal and complete word within the heart of the hearer, which is called sphot, and which alone is associated with meaning. To put it in simple words, the listener or the reader only makes the sense out of the words when each syllables are combined together to form the word. Therefore, Anandvardhan leaves the meaning of the text to the heart of the listener. Rasadhvani can be considered as the basic foundation of Indian literary theory, and what followed after the 9th century is for the most part an elaboration of it. Scholars like Mammat, Abhinav Gupta, Jagannath Pandit expanded Indian literary theory. And though Jagannath Pandit was in 17th century, Radhakrishna and more noted in a source book in Indian philosophy that Indian philosophy lost its dynamic spirit about 16th century, because Mughals and then the British did not only assume the control of the country but of the thought as well. In the West, a tradition of invocation of muse before the beginning of the Greek epics can be seen as a theory of the poet about their own poem. But the systematic development of literary theory starts from Plato. Plato was an idealist and believed that the ideal state of the universe exists in the higher realm, which is the ultimate truth, and this ultimate truth is unchanging and eternal, and it is the essence of the world of appearance, that is to say, the world in which we live. To simplify it, let us take a look at the 10th book of Republic, in which the example of bed is given. Plato says there exists one true bed in the higher realm, which is the essence and idea of the bed, and a bed made by the carpenter in the world of appearance is the copy of that bed, the true bed. And when the painter paints this bed, it becomes the copy of the copy, and hence it becomes thrice removed from the essence of the truth. In a similar manner, poetry is thrice removed from the reality, since old art is essentially an imitation of the world, is one of the oldest aesthetic theories. Therefore, Plato did not entertain the idea of poets in his Utopia. But Plato's disciple Aristotle did not entertain Plato's idea. Aristotle too believed in the imitation or the mimetic theory, but he makes a clear distinction between poetry and other artistic activities, and then he differentiates between other poetic forms such as epic, tragedy and comedy. Interestingly, Aristotle's theory comes very close to that of Bharatmuni's Natyasashtra. Though Aristotle says nothing about the liberation of the soul, he did believe that the art can elevate us. In fact, he believed that the tragedy, by the evocation of fear and pity, purifies the audience. That is to say, the fate of the tragic hero takes the audience on an emotional journey that, at the end of it, when they are back home, their unhealthy emotions are removed. Another great episode in the development of literary theory is the treatise of Perihypsis, commonly known in English as On the Sublime. The author of the work is believed to be Longinus, and though it was probably written in the 1st century of the Common Era, it remained for the most part unknown until Francisco Robertello published it in 1554, deriving it from the 10th century extant manuscript. What makes it different from the other treatise is the fact that it breaks the conventional boundaries of the genre by comparing prose and verse. Citing Hebrew scriptures in opposition to Homer, Longinus provides 5 characteristics of the great art, which are: first, ability to think great thought; second, ability to feel powerful emotion; third, appropriate use of figures of thought and expression; fourth, noble diction, which includes proper word choice and use of metaphor; and fifth, dignified word arrangement. In the years that followed, the sphere of humanities developed, and with it developed the sphere of literary theories. Philip Sidney's deep defense of poesy, Kant's critique of judgment, the romantic thought of the age of romanticism, Levi-Strauss' structuralism all added to it. Thus, literary theory connects the literature, the work of imagination, with the wider sphere of humanities that tries to find the answer to our very own identity and existence. But the question that arises is that if all this is literary theory, then what is literary criticism? Well, actually the word theory came into the fashion after 1950s, from when the scholars started using the word for the wide range of approaches to literature, from Marxist to deconstructionist. William Wimsatt and Cleaneth Brooks, in their 1957 book Literary Criticism: A Short History, used the word theory to refer to any broad assumptions about the literature. For instance, what Horace says about certain literary work is of course criticism, but he says it with a certain broad assumption in his mind, and those assumptions are theory. To put things in simple words, literary theory becomes literary criticism when it is put into practice. If I start analyzing a novel or a poem with the idea of economic condition of the society at the time, modes of production and class system in mind, I am doing a Marxist criticism, but that idea is Marxist theory. But the final questions we may be having are: why do we have literary theory? What purpose does it serve? Why do we have to peruse literature rather than simply reading it and have fun? To answer it briefly, theory provides us a system of organizing the manifold experience of literature, and ultimately makes the reader understand and appreciate literature in a better manner. Theory pushes the artists to create the best of the art possible, and it pushes the educationists to educate society to comprehend such art. Theory of Bharatmuni and Aristotle shows that though we belong to distant lands, our ideas are very close, and the theory of Anandvardhan and Saussure, who solved the ideas of structuralism, shows that though we seem centuries apart, our thoughts are very near. In that case, theory shows us that whomever we are, at the end of the day, we are the human, and the art that helps us being a human is best of the art. By the way, if you like my work, a click on the subscription button will show me your appreciation. Else, comment me critically and I will try to push myself further the next time.